A young bloke was strolling through a quiet town when something unexpected and heartbreaking happened. Out of nowhere, a German shepherd bitch turned up right in front of him, all skin and bone, filthy, with sheer desperation burning in her eyes. But it wasn't just a growling tummy, it was something more. She was trying to yarn, something urgent, something that changed the path for a whole mob of lives. What went down next is a story so shocking, so full of love and pain, you'll never bloody forget it. Stick around right to the very end, cause this story will absolutely tear your heart out, but it'll also fill your cup with hope. Before we kick off, make sure you chuck a sub to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell. That's how we keep sharing stories like this, mate. The afternoon sun was coating the small dirt track that cut through bushland near a country town in the Dandenong Ranges, Victoria, in a golden light. The air was still, quiet as a mouse. Only the sound of the birds broke the silence. Jack, a 34-year-old tourist on a long weekend away, was walking easy, soaking up the peace he'd craved, a million miles from the city's racket. He'd arrived 3 days ago, hoping to disconnect, find a bit of serenity in the bush, but what he found was something else, a moment that would stick with him forever. He'd barely taken another step when he heard a faint rustle in the scrub to his left. He stopped dead in his tracks, turning his head, his heart giving a bit of a thump. Maybe a roo or a wallaby, he thought. He wasn't used to those kinds of bush encounters. But then he spotted something that sent a chill right through him. Standing dead center on the dirt track was a German shepherd. This wasn't just a stray, though. There was something about her that made Jack's guts clench. Her skin looked like it had been scraped with a razor. Her coat, once strong and glossy, was now a matted, dusty mess, caked in dried mud. But what really hit him, what knocked the wind out of him, were her eyes. They weren't just any mongrel's eyes. They were eyes absolutely swimming in desperation. Jack took a step towards her, but the dog didn't flinch, didn't growl, didn't bark. She just stared. And then something happened that gave him goosebumps. She slowly shuffled towards him. Her paws were trembling with every stride, her breathing ragged like she'd been running for hours. When she was close enough, she gently mouthed the cuff of his jeans and gave a tug. A shiver went down Jack's spine. "What the?" he muttered, baffled. She let go for a tick and looked at him. Her eyes were pleading. Then she tugged again, harder, more insistent. It was like she was begging him, plain as day, to follow her. Jack scanned the surroundings. The track was deserted, no one else around. Just him and this unknown dog who was clearly trying to tell him something huge. His first thought was that she was starving, just after a feed. But it didn't feel right. This wasn't hunger, mate, it was pure urgency. Jack slowly crouched down, trying not to spook her. "You want me to come with you, do you?" The dog backed up a step, tail tucked, body tense, but she didn't bolt. Instead, she spun around and started walking, glancing back every few seconds to check he was on her tail. Jack swallowed hard. Something deep down told him he had to go. He couldn't explain it, but his gut screamed this was no ordinary coincidence. "Righto, cobber, lead the way." He took the first step, and the dog broke into a run. Not like a happy dog with its owner. She ran with a desperate purpose, like every single second was a life and death matter. Jack hurried after her, his runners kicking up the dust as the track narrowed. The sun was starting to sink, the air cooling down, but his mind was fixed on one thing. What the hell was she trying to show him? As he chased her, his heart was pounding, convinced that whatever he was about to find would change everything. And at that moment, he had no idea just how close he was to a truth that would absolutely crush his soul. Jack ran full tilt after the dog, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The dirt track tightened up, boxed in by towering gum trees that filtered the sunlight, leaving only small patches to light the path. But he didn't see any of that. He only saw her. The German shepherd was running non-stop, only looking back to make sure he hadn't pulled the pin. Her body was shivering with every stride. Her skinny, weak legs looked like they were ready to pack it in, but she kept pushing on. Jack could feel it in the air. Something was seriously wrong. This wasn't the usual behavior of a wild dog. She wasn't after a snack or a pat. She wanted him to follow. And the sheer panic in her movements made a cold fear start to grow in Jack's chest. "Hold up just a sec," he tried to call out, but she didn't stop. The dirt track soon turned into thick, sloppy mud. Jack almost stacked it with a misplaced step, his heart hammering against his ribs as he fought to stay upright. The bush smell changed. The air got heavier, and a strange stench drifted through the trees. An aroma Jack couldn't quite place, but it made his skin crawl. A moldy, closed-in, rotting smell. His breathing got heavier. Where the hell was this dog taking him? Finally, after what felt like an age, the dog slammed to a halt. Jack hit the brakes too, his chest heaving. The dog froze, head low, ears pinned back. They'd rocked up to a small, run-down wooden shack. It was practically swallowed by the undergrowth and trees, like the bush was trying to claim it back. The roof was caving in spots, the windows were grimy, and the timber door had deep score marks, like something had tried to claw its way out. Jack tried to get his wind back. "Here, is it here?" The dog looked at the shack, then back at him, and then she let out a noise that absolutely cut him to the quick. It wasn't a bark or a warning growl. It was a pure, gut-wrenching cry, a long, deep moan loaded with pain. Jack felt a knot tighten in his chest. It wasn't fear now. It was sheer anguish. The dog went right up to the door and started scratching at it with her front paws. There was no puff in her, no real energy, as if she'd tried this countless times before and had no hope left for a miracle. But now Jack was here. He could do something. He had to do something. "What's in there, then?" he asked, knowing full well she couldn't answer. But she locked eyes with him, and in that instant, he got it. She was asking for help. Someone or something was trapped inside. Jack felt a shiver, but without hesitation he reached out and touched the door. It was already ajar. He pushed gently, and the old wood groaned under his weight, letting loose an even heavier stench, a mix of damp rot and utter despair. And then he saw it. His heart stopped for a second. In a dark corner of the shack, hidden behind a busted old table, were tiny eyes reflecting the light from the open door. Jack held his breath. He wasn't imagining it. There, in the murky light, were puppies, 3, maybe 4 of them. Small, dirty, frail. One was barely moving. Jack felt his throat squeeze, but what really curdled his blood was the metal cage in the other corner. It was empty, but stained with dried blood. Jack swallowed hard. Something truly vile had gone down in this place, and the dog knew it. She'd come running for help because she was at her limit, because she'd done everything she could, and if she didn't find help now, her little ones would die. Jack looked at the dog right behind him, trembling, head down, eyes pleading. For a beat, neither of them moved, until Jack bent down, took a deep breath, and spoke the words that sealed his own fate. "I'm not leaving you here, mate." The dog let out a small whimper, and this time, it was pure relief. What Jack didn't know yet was that this rescue was going to be a long shot, and what he was about to uncover would scar him forever. The air inside the abandoned shack was heavy, thick with the smell of mold, confinement, and something darker that Jack couldn't bear to think about. His eyes slowly adjusted to the gloom. The puppies were there. There were 4 of them in total, tiny and weak, their bodies barely covered in fur. The smallest one wasn't moving. Jack felt a cold wave wash over him. He took another step inside the shack. The floorboards creaked, but the pups didn't react. They were too knackered, too weak even to lift their heads. And then Jack saw something else, something that made his stomach churn. There were more cages. One was open, its door twisted and hinges rusted. The others were locked with padlocks. Some were empty, but one held a small, lifeless body. Jack felt his chest lock up. He squeezed his eyes shut for a second, fighting the shake in his hands. He couldn't lose it now. He drew a deep breath and looked at the dog. She stood in the doorway, trembling, ears down, body stiff, her eyes glued to him. "Who'd do this?" Jack whispered, knowing he wouldn't get an answer. The dog lowered her head, nudged the pups, and with extreme tenderness licked the head of the youngest, the one who wasn't moving. Jack felt something tear inside him. He knew what that meant. She knew it was too late for one of them, but not for the other three, and not for her. And she wasn't going to let them die here. Not after everything she'd done to find help, not after she'd found him. Jack didn't hesitate for a second. He pulled off his jacket and, with total care, wrapped the 3 puppies that were still breathing. They were so incredibly fragile. The dog whimpered as he gathered them into his arms. "I'm getting you all out of here," he promised. She didn't question him. She stuck close, walking right beside him, as if she knew this was the one and only road to salvation. Jack walked out of the shack, the pups nestled in his arms, his mind racing. Who had left them here? Why the cages? Why was one pup lifeless in a cage? He had no answers, and no time to hunt for them. The only thing that mattered now was saving them. The walk back was a lot tougher than the sprint out. Jack felt the weight of the puppies in his arms, even though they were so light they barely registered. The dog ran alongside him, panting hard but not giving up. She knew her family was in danger, and she had total faith in Jack. He could feel it, see it in every look she gave him, in the way she never left his side for a second. This bitch had been through hell, but now she was putting every last bit of hope on him. The dirt track turned into a street of paving stones. The first houses of the little Gippsland town appeared in the distance. Jack picked up the pace, heart hammering. He couldn't let them be too late. When Jack arrived in the town, he didn't waste a moment. He tore across the central square without stopping, drawing the eye of a few locals. But he couldn't stop to explain a thing. He had only one destination in mind: the vet's clinic. When he got there, he pushed the door open with his shoulder, crashing in with the puppies in his arms. "I need a hand," he yelled, his voice thick with distress. A vet, a woman in her 50s with her hair scraped back in a tight bun, looked up immediately. When she saw what Jack was carrying, her eyes widened. "Good God," she murmured, running towards him. Jack laid the puppies on the consulting table. The dog clambered up with her front paws, panting, as if terrified of being separated from them. "Found them in a shack," Jack managed, catching his breath. "Don't know how long they've been there, but they're stuffed." The vet got straight to it. She started checking each pup, her expression growing more and more grim. "They're dehydrated, severe malnutrition," she said quietly. Jack felt sick to his stomach. "Will they make it?" The vet didn't answer right away, and that scared him more than anything. She looked at the dog. She was also waiting for the answer. Her dark eyes were full of fear, but also something else. Hope. When the vet finished, she let out a difficult breath. "I won't lie to you. They're critical. I don't know if all of them will pull through." Jack felt his chest tighten, but then the vet looked at the dog. "But she's kept them alive until now, and that means there's still a fighting chance." Jack closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his gaze was set in stone. He looked at the dog. "We're going to fight for them, all right? We won't give up." She raised her head, slowly came closer, and nudged her muzzle against his hand. Jack froze. It was the first time she had initiated contact. It was her way of saying she trusted him, that they were in this together, that she was finally not alone. And Jack in that moment made a vow. No matter what, he wouldn't abandon this family. Not after all they'd endured. Never. What Jack didn't know was that this was only the start of a much, much bigger battle. The vet clinic was absolutely silent, apart from the beeping of heart monitors and the steady drip-drip of the serum bags feeding the pups. Jack stayed put. The 3 puppies were tucked onto a thermal blanket, tiny IVs taped to their paws, their bodies so fragile they looked like they might snap at a breath. The German shepherd mother wouldn't take her eyes off them. She was lying right next to the consulting table, her head resting on the edge, watching them in complete silence. Her body was trembling, but not from cold. It was fear, the fear of losing them, of everything she had done being for nothing. Jack sensed it deep in his own chest. The vet worked non-stop, checking every vital sign, trying to make sure the puppies were stable. But stable was a loose term. They could still crash. They still might not pull through. And the thought that this dog might lose her babies after such a brutal fight tore at Jack's soul. He wouldn't allow it. Jack kept looking at his watch. The hand seemed to be moving in slow motion. Every minute that passed without a pup stopping breathing felt like a tiny win. But the weakest of the three, the smallest, barely moved at all. His breathing was so shallow, Jack had to lean right down to his tiny chest to be certain he was still alive. The vet shook her head, worried. "This little fella's the one we're most worried about." Jack clenched his fists. "Tell me what to do." The vet looked at him, serious. "We're doing it, but it's up to him now." Jack felt a lump in his throat. No, he wasn't having a bar of that. He leaned over the thermal blanket and, with utmost delicacy, stroked the tiny puppy's head. "Come on, little champion. Fight just a bit harder." The German shepherd mother lifted her head and whimpered softly, as if she understood every word Jack was saying, as if she too was praying for a miracle. The hours dragged on. Every little sound in the clinic made Jack jump out of his skin, but at one point, the smallest pup went completely still. Jack's heart stopped. "No, no, no," he yelled, his voice choked with pure anguish. The vet rushed to the table. Jack watched in horrifying slow motion as she checked the tiny pup, as she put her hand on his chest, and the silence became deafening. The world shrank down to a single frantic thought. He can't die, he can't die, he can't die. The German shepherd mother let out a heart-rending moan, trying to push closer. The vet didn't give up. She started pressing on the puppy's tiny chest. 1, 2, 3 compressions. Nothing. 4, 5. Jack held his breath. 6, 7, and then a gasp. Small, weak, but it was there. The puppy was still alive. Jack let out a huge breath, feeling the air rush back into his lungs. The German shepherd mother licked the little one's face, as if telling him not to give up, to stay with them, to fight. Jack ran a shaky hand over his face, feeling the tears welling up. He couldn't lose them. The vet straightened up and looked at Jack, serious. "They're going to need around-the-clock care." Jack nodded immediately. "Just tell me what needs doing." The vet sighed. "I still don't know if they'll pull through, but if they do, they're going to need a home." Jack went quiet. His gaze went from the pups to the mother. She was looking straight back at him, and this time there was no fear in her eyes, only hope. Jack felt a weight settle on his chest. This dog hadn't trusted anyone in weeks, not even him at first. She'd picked him, sought him out, and now he had the chance to give life back to her whole family. Jack didn't hesitate. He looked up at the vet and, with a certainty he'd never felt before, he said, "I'm taking them home." That night, the clinic fell silent again. Jack stayed with the German shepherd mother. He couldn't leave her alone, not now. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, watching her sleep for the first time in days, curled up right beside her babies. One of the puppies whined in its sleep, and she covered it with her body. Jack felt a warmth in his chest he couldn't explain. Something inside him had changed. Tomorrow they would start a new life together. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth a cracker ever is. All that mattered now was that no one would ever split them up again. Dawn filtered its golden light through the vet clinic windows when Jack woke with a jolt. For a second he forgot where he was, but then he felt a weight against his leg. The German shepherd mother was asleep right next to him. Not in the blanket they'd set up for her, not in a quiet corner, but beside him. Jack felt a rush of emotion. For hours she'd been on guard, eyes wide and body tense, as if afraid something would snatch her babies away. But now, for the first time, she was resting. For the first time she looked like she felt safe, and that spoke volumes. Jack didn't move, not wanting to wake her. But then a small sound broke the silence, a whimper. One of the pups was stirring. Jack sat up slowly, careful not to disturb the moment. He moved to the consulting table where the 3 puppies were, still wrapped up. Something was different. Their tiny bodies, which had felt as light as air before, were now shaking with small, involuntary twitches. Their little legs flapped slightly. Jack held his breath. "Go on, little legends, keep fighting." And then something incredible happened. One of the puppies opened its eyes. For an instant, it was just a faint glimmer. But when that tiny gaze focused on Jack, something inside him utterly shattered. They weren't just alive, they were coming back. To life. Jack felt tears sting his eyes. They bloody made it. Hours later, Jack was holding a box with the 3 puppies inside, wrapped in clean, soft blankets. Beside him, the German Shepherd mother never left his side for a second. Her eyes still held a flicker of fear, as if she couldn't believe this was real, as if she worried the world would snatch them away again at any moment. Jack understood. Life had taught this dog that good things don't last, but that was about to change, because Jack wasn't going to bail on them. The youth pulled up in front of Jack's place. It was a small, cozy cabin with a fenced, grassy backyard, a typical Aussie weekender, not flashy, but a home. For the first time in their lives, this family had a proper home. Jack opened the car door. The German Shepherd mother didn't budge at first. She stared at the house, the yard, the open sky above it. Jack saw the hesitation in her eyes. To her, doors meant danger, houses meant being locked up, people meant betrayal. But Jack wanted to show her this time was different, that this time she was safe as houses. "Come on, girl, it's your place now." The dog studied him for a long moment, seemed to struggle internally, and then she made her choice. She took one step, then another, and walked through the door entirely of her own accord. Jack grinned. He didn't say anything else, just put the box of puppies on the floor and sat down on the sofa, waiting. She had to decide the next move. The dog went over to the box, sniffed her babies, gave them a small lick, and then looked up at Jack. And that's when the real miracle happened. With slow steps, she approached him, and for the very first time, she curled up right next to him, seeking his warmth. Jack didn't move a muscle. He let her feel it, let her understand he was staying put. Minutes passed in silence, until finally she let out a deep sigh, a breath of relief, as if after so long, she could finally rest. Jack gently stroked her back. "Welcome home, mate." Jack spent the afternoon setting everything up. A makeshift bed with blankets for the pups, a bowl of fresh water, a bowl of soft, wet food. Nothing fancy, but everything they needed right then. The German Shepherd mother stuck by her puppies all day, watching over them. That night, she got up, walked over to Jack, and sat down opposite him. Jack stayed absolutely still. He didn't want to startle her, didn't want to rush things. And then, with a gentleness that took his breath away, she willingly rested her head on his lap. Jack felt a lump form in his throat. This wasn't just a gesture. It wasn't just a casual pat. It was trust. For the first time in who knows how long, she trusted a human. Jack closed his eyes for a moment, holding back his emotion. "I promise, girl, you'll never be on your own again." She closed her eyes too, and in that instant, Jack knew it had all been worth it. No matter the sacrifices or the effort, because he had saved a family, and somehow he had been saved too. And now they would never be separated again. Dawn painted the little cabin gold. Jack woke slowly, feeling an unusual warmth in his lap. When he opened his eyes, his heart melted. The German Shepherd mother was still there, her head resting on his legs. She hadn't moved all night. Jack felt a rush of emotion through his chest. The dog had chosen to stay. After all the pain, all the fear, she finally trusted him. Jack gently ran his fingers over her back. She opened her eyes, looked at him for a long time, and gave a little tail wag. It was minimal, barely a twitch, but for Jack, it was the most powerful sign he could receive. "Good morning, girl," he whispered, his throat tightening with emotion. She sighed, stretched slowly, and got up. But instead of walking off, she stayed right by his side. She wasn't scared anymore, she wasn't doubting. For the first time in forever, she felt she was home. The next few days were a huge learning curve for everyone. Jack looked after the pups, making sure each one got the right food, that their fragile bodies gained strength slowly but surely. The German Shepherd mother never left their side for a second. Even when Jack tried to clean up, she followed him with her eyes, as if worried he might disappear too. He understood. The fear of losing the one thing you love doesn't vanish overnight, so he didn't push it. Every day was a new chance to show her she was safe, that he wouldn't leave, wouldn't betray her, and slowly she started to believe it. One afternoon, Jack decided it was time for a crack at the great outdoors. With extreme care, he opened the back door to the yard. It was a good-sized, grassy area, surrounded by a tall wooden fence, a safe zone. But the German Shepherd mother didn't see it that way. She stood stock still on the threshold. Her paws trembled, her gaze flicking from side to side, checking every corner, every shadow. Jack didn't force the issue. He just walked out onto the grass and sat down. He waited. He didn't call her, didn't look right at her. He let her make the call. The seconds stretched into minutes. But then, one step, then another. The dog slowly moved towards him. With every inch she covered, she seemed smaller, more vulnerable, but she didn't stop. And when she finally reached Jack, something amazing happened. For the first time, she looked up at the sky, not with fear or anxiety, but just with curiosity. Jack felt a lump in his throat. "Welcome back to the world, girl." She looked at him, and this time her tail gave a slightly stronger wag. Weeks passed, and the mother German Shepherd turned into a different dog. Her body filled out, her coat shone again, and her eyes no longer reflected terror. The puppies grew strong, tearing around the house, hassling Jack, and sometimes gnawing his bloodstones until he laughed. It was a life straight out of a dream. But the shadows of the past hadn't completely cleared. Some nights Jack would wake up to hear low whimpers. He'd get up and find the German Shepherd mother sitting by the window, staring into the blackness, body tense, breathing ragged, as if she was still expecting someone to come and take them. Jack would creep over, sit beside her, and without a word, slide his hand over her back. She always ended up leaning her head against him, and so they'd stay, two souls healing each other, fighting to forget. But fate had one last big test lined up for them, and this one came with no warning. One afternoon, while Jack was mucking about with the puppies in the yard, the sound of a car stopping out front broke the peace. It was odd. He lived right out in the sticks, hardly anyone drove past. Jack slowly stood up. From the window, he saw a black car parked. Two blokes got out. They were strangers, but when the German Shepherd mother saw them, she froze. Her eyes went huge, her ears flattened against her head, and then Jack understood. They weren't strangers to her. They were the mongrels who had dumped her. Jack felt his heart seize up. The German Shepherd mother started shaking, but this time it wasn't fear. It was rage. And in her eyes, Jack saw something he'd never seen before. Steely determination, because now she had something to protect. The sound of the engine dying outside the house shattered the calm that had settled over Jack and his new family. The men stepped out of the black car, strides firm, eyes cold as ice. Jack watched them from the window, a chill running down his spine. He didn't know them, but the German Shepherd mother sure did. Her body went completely rigid, her breathing hitched, her eyes darkened with a terror Jack hadn't witnessed before. For a second he thought she would bolt, that fear would paralyze her, but no, not this time. Because now she had everything to protect, her puppies, her home, her family. And in that instant, Jack saw it clearly. She wasn't the same broken dog he'd found weeks ago. Now she was a mother, a survivor, and she wasn't about to let them hurt her again. Jack threw the door open before the men could even knock. He didn't know what he was going to say, but he knew for bloody certain he wasn't letting them lay a finger on her or the pups. The two men stopped dead on the porch. One of them, a tall bloke with a shaved head, stuck his hands in his pockets and gave Jack a slow once-over. "Nice place," he commented with a sarcastic smirk. "You've got something of ours, you know. Jack felt his blood boil. "There's nothing of yours here." The other bloke, shorter in a worn leather jacket, snorted. "Don't take it the wrong way. We just came for the dog." Jack stepped forward. "She's not going anywhere." The men exchanged a look like it was the funniest thing they'd heard. "That's not up to you, mate." Jack clenched his fists. He wanted to belt those bastards, wanted to scream at them what miserable sods they were for what they'd done, but he couldn't lose it, because this wasn't about him. It was about her. And then the German Shepherd mother appeared right beside him. The men went silent when they saw her. Her stance wasn't fearful. No lowered head, no tail between the legs. This wasn't the shattered dog abandoned in the shack. This was something else entirely. Her eyes were fire. Her body, once weak and shaking, was now solid, powerful, ready to launch. The men unconsciously took a step back. She held their gaze without blinking, and then she barked. Loud, powerful. Jack had never heard a sound like it. It was a full-on warning, a challenge. The puppies inside whimpered when they heard her. Jack felt a strange pride break inside him. That dog had been beaten, betrayed, abandoned, but they hadn't broken her spirit. And now she was making it absolutely clear she'd never be going back with them. The men cottoned on quick. They looked at each other and knew they'd lost all control over her. The shorter one scowled and spat on the ground. "You rotten bitch," he muttered. The other grabbed his arm. "Come on, she's not worth the trouble." Jack didn't say a thing. He just watched the two men walk back to their car. The German Shepherd mother watched them go too, but she didn't move, didn't hide, didn't run. She stood there, head held high, until the black car vanished down the road. And then she sighed, as if with that breath she was finally shaking off all the fear, finally cutting herself loose from the past. Jack felt the tears well up. He crouched down beside her and put his hand on her back. "It's all over, girl, never again." She looked at him, and for the first time since he'd met her, her warm tongue gently touched his hand. It was her way of saying ta, her way of telling him she trusted him implicitly, her way of letting him know she was finally home. That night, Jack lit the wood fire. The puppies slept soundly, all piled up together. The German Shepherd mother lay down right next to them, peaceful and calm. Jack sat on the floor nearby. He looked at her for a long time, then grinned. "You know, it's about time we gave you a name." She raised her head. Her ears twitched slightly, listening to his voice. Jack thought for a moment. He wanted something that fit her, something to honor her strength, something that spoke of everything she'd survived. "I'll call you Rusty." The firelight danced in her dark eyes. Jack's heart pounded when he saw her reaction. She blinked slowly, and then, for the first time, she gave a genuine, happy tail wag. Jack laughed out loud with pure emotion. "You like that eye, Rusty?" She came over and rested her head on his leg. Jack felt his soul fill up with something he'd never felt before. Belonging, family. He leaned down and softly kissed her forehead. "Welcome to your new life, Rusty." And this time, it was for good. If this story hit you in the feels, remember, dogs never ditch us, but way too often, we humans let them down. Rusty fought for her life, for her pups, for a home, and in the end, she found the love she always deserved. Subscribe to the channel for more inspiring yarns, hit the like button if you reckon all dogs deserve a home, and share this story with someone who needs to remember that a bit of love and kindness can save a life. Because in the end, they don't need a hero. It's us that needs to learn a thing or two from them. Cheers for joining us for this ripper of a story.